On September 7th, discover the secret behind the words.
You think you can just steal man's life?
Bradley Cooper, Jeremy Irons, Dennis Quaid, Olivia Wilde, and Zoe Saldana.
What really happened?
The words.
In this film, the character that you play, World War II, little post-World War II era, how did you sort of prepare for that?
I've always been fascinated by the history of the sort of Great Wars, and I'd done a play set in the First World War, and I'd read a lot about the Second World War and watched, you know, all the films and TV you could hope to watch about the Second World War. But I sort of felt that it wasn't particularly relevant for this particular film, because it wasn't really, it was about him missing the war, honestly. It was about his generation of men having that story to tell, and he was so desperate to have a story to tell, but he didn't have one because he missed it. And then he went back home to Philadelphia and was so disillusioned and realised he loved this woman so passionately. He was like, well, maybe I'll just go and make that work. And then, of course, like all great stories, it was born out of tragedy and loss and misery that spawned and purged this great story.
Yeah.
That he managed just to get out, but he's sort of so full of regret by the end. It's sort of heartbreaking, I think.
Does the costume, I always imagine the costume, the period,
Helped
all that just
so
sort of
much.
does all the work for you,
And they did
right?
a great job with the sets. I mean,
Yeah.
the day that I was so worried about the scene where I had to come in and read the letter that my wife has left me, and just before he writes the story, and I was so anxious about doing that and being brave enough to just go for it. And so I went and sat in that room in the dark, you know, in the musky dark for about an hour before, you know, the crew moved in and stuff. And just to kind of really feel like lonely in that space. And I think that helped a lot.
Well, like you mentioned, your character goes some really heartbreaking pain, you know, in this film. Is it emotionally draining, emotionally difficult to sort of prepare yourself on a day-to-day basis for those scenes that you have to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very difficult. And it was actually made slightly easier by the fact that I knew, particularly in the scene where we lose the baby, I was worried about my reaction to that, because how would I react? And then actually in the moment, it wasn't really about that. It was more about trying to be a rock and a support for my wife, who was, and she was fantastic. I mean, she really went there dark, and she found it very difficult after we'd finished to kind of come back.
Sure.
You know, so I remember just sitting there, you know, trying to sort of provide her with some solace and comfort, and actually that is probably the role that you would wish you would do. So that helped me a lot, and that made me feel sad too. So you know, you just got to trust your partner in those situations and work on it together. You know?
Excellent, yeah. You're essentially playing a young version of Jeremy Irons in the film.
Yeah, I am.
Do you watch the scenes he's already shot? Did you
Yes.
shoot first? How did you prepare to sort of play him?
I when I got there, he'd already finished, and I watched some rushes of him, in particular. A fantastic close-up that's not in the film, but a fantastic 10-minute close-up of his face, narrating the story of the young man, which obviously is not in the film because otherwise I would not be. It would just be him telling the story. But it was incredible, and I picked up a few little mannerisms, a few little hand gestures and things he did with his eyes, and I thought it would just be enough to hint at, you know, what was kind of.
Yeah, sort of had the hint of.
I think so long as you have the same colour eyes, and you know, he was narrating my part of the story, so I was pretty confident it would be obvious that we were supposed to be the same character, but whether people would really believe it was you know, you just got to wait till it's done.
And that must be a great compliment for you as an actor to be cast, you know, by Brian sees something in you that he could be Jeremy Irons young.
Yeah, well,
I
it was strange. It wasn't. Sometimes for these things you have to jump through hoops and all sorts of things. This arrived, I read it, and the next day the directors called me and said, please do it.
Perfect.
And I just loved their enthusiasm, and they really thought it was a good idea, and I wasn't so sure at the time. I was like, but guys, he doesn't speak. And they were like, yeah, but you're gonna be the soul of it because you write the story, like it's gonna be great. And they were right. I really did get a lot out of it. I'm so proud of it.